Hello there, Biaka Myuzu desu, and welcome to my review of Resident Evil Remake. So I have been going through the Resident Evil series and now I've reached the first game, the iconic game of the Resident Evil series, which is the first Resident Evil. And you have this adventure. So in Resident Evil 0, you have the adventure focused on Rebecca. In this one, the adventure is divided between Jill and Chris. And I say divided because you can know the story from playing just with one of them, but if you want a full grasp of the story, you should really play with the two of them. And I actually did this. I did a run for Jill and a run for Chris. I chose Jill first, of course, because I'm really interested in Jill more than Chris, and because I'm a girl, and now I know that Jill is an easier form to start compared to Chris because she has more inventory space, she has extra two slots, and I think she also can handle more damage. I think so. I really enjoyed playing with her, and you also have access to slightly different cutscenes. So you start your adventure, you know from Resident Evil 0 they had a mansion, and in this one you are exploring the Spencer mansion after the Bravo team went missing. So stars are sent there to investigate what is going on, what are the strange things that are happening there, and you have that famous scene with that zombie just turning your way. It has some iconic moments. And you enter the mansion with four stars members, which are Jill, Chris, Barry, and Wesker. And you will see different sides of these characters as you play with Jill and as you play with Chris. And of course, there are other members already at the mansion, but basically, you will meet them one time during your playthrough, and it's to see them die. With Jill, you have access to this plot about a traitor, so you know that among the Stars team there is someone that has betrayed them. And of course, this will have spoilers. That person is Barry. So actually, it's really interesting because during Jill's playthrough, some parts are made easier by Barry coming to the rescue. For example, the famous scene where he talks about Jill almost becoming a Jill sandwich that has become a meme in games and movies is actually a scene that only happens if you, like I did, don't solve the puzzle as you're supposed to, because you're supposed to find the broken shotgun and place it so the ceiling doesn't fall on top of Jill. But I didn't do that, and Barry came to the rescue. I actually later tried to do this with Chris, but of course Barry doesn't come to the rescue of Chris, so Chris just ended up dying in a stupid way. And of course, you have lots of stuff, you have lots of different enemies. In my playthrough with Jill, I actually finished with Barry only. I wasn't able to save Richard from the snake venom, which I later did with Chris. And I finished with Barry because I was able to save him from Lisa. So you have a decision when you fight for the last time with Lisa, and don't do like I did because I spent a lot of ammo with Lisa Trevor because I thought I was supposed to take her down. No, you don't do that. You don't spend ammo unnecessarily trying to kill her. That doesn't happen. And when you find her for the last time, you actually have an option, because at that point, Jill already knows that Barry is a traitor because, let's say, he has abandoned her quite a few times, so she understands what's going on. And you will have a decision to make. You either hand him the gun so he can defend himself and help you, or you just keep his gun and maybe he's killed? I don't know, because I didn't take that option because I decided to trust Barry because, Barry is a traitor because his family is basically being held hostage, his wife and daughter. So Why not? He has come to save and help Jill many times. Actually, I don't know if this is something from the easy mode, but he also left healing items and ammo in save rooms, so which were really helpful. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And he helps you fight the tyrant at the end. You also see Wesker dying by the tyrant, but when Jill turns around after defeating the tyrant, Wesker is already gone, so what could have happened? After spending almost 14 hours in Jill's playthrough, I went and played again with Chris. And I actually was able to cut that time to a little bit more than 9 hours. So Chris is supposed to be more difficult than Jill, but I was actually able to do a much quicker run through with him. Of course, knowing the layout of the mansion, knowing what to do with the items, because I already did those things with Jill, was actually something that helped a lot. So with Chris, you actually have access. So you don't see Jill, you don't see Barry, you actually find another character that didn't come to the mansion with the Stars team, which is Rebecca. So Rebecca is back in this game, not as a playable character. Well, I think there was a moment where I could control her, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe my memory is just reimagining it because I really wanted to play with Rebecca again. But I think there was a moment where you could control her. And Rebecca, because we know from the end of Resident Evil Zero, Billy Cohen is... Rebecca says that as far as she knows, Billy Cohen died in the explosion of Marcus's mansion, and Billy goes free. And she has the opportunity of saying goodbye to this life, and she says that she still has stuff to do, and you see her going down to a mansion, which is obviously the Spencer mansion. So she's here basically to be the Barry of Chris's playthrough. And she appears in some moments, helps him. I was able to save Richard this time. That was the first time I saw Rebecca, because she also found him after he was bit by the snake. And after healing him, because I was able to save him this time, just for him to die later on, because he is eaten by a shark trying to save Chris. So it was pointless really, because he doesn't do anything between those two moments. Rebecca stays in the medical save room, and each time you enter that save room and you approach her, she will ask if you want her to heal your wounds. And this is really helpful because although I wasn't lacking in healing items, it's always good to have someone to heal you anytime. And you do a lot of stuff, you go through... The playthrough wasn't that different from Jill. I was actually able with Chris to finish with Rebecca and Jill, because I found Chris after using all the ammo discs in Jill's run, but I was dying lots of times to the bug monsters that are in the lab, and I just got tired of that, and I said I gave up on Chris basically, but I did save Jill with Chris now that I was more used to the game. And you have this really cute cutscene where she leans on his shoulder and everything. But I was really happy to be able to do these things. I actually did the extra puzzle of the tombs to get the Magnum, and I don't think I used it. I just kept it in my item box without using it a single time. But that's life, because I actually was able to manage a lot. So with Jill, I was almost always shooting zombies, hunters, and all that stuff. And with Chris, I tried to spare as much ammo and healing items as I could. And I actually ended up with a lot of items at the end of the game. Also, you see in Chris' playthrough, you see more times Wesker. Wesker is the STARS member that Chris encounters more. And I actually did one part again because you could finish the game without Rebecca, because there's when you enter the Spencer room, you hear her scream, and I actually let her die to the hunter. But I wasn't going to finish this game without Rebecca, so I actually went back to my save just so I could save her from the hunter, so I could finish with her. And it's really interesting to be at the heliport basically fighting, and you have the two of them, you have Jill and Rebecca trying to help you. Well, Jill is basically knocked unconscious by the tyrant, and Rebecca is the only one that's still shooting and trying to distract him for your sake. But it was cool nonetheless. With Chris, with Jill, I died a lot of times to the dogs because they would be, if you don't have the daggers or the taser, you can't get them off. They push you down and you are just there watching Jill being bitten to death. That actually didn't happen a lot with Chris, but with Jill it happened a lot, and I was really getting tired, especially when you go to the courtyard and there are a lot of dogs. I died so many times there. And I actually died a lot of times to those bug monsters too with Jill. With Chris, my problem at a certain point were the hunters. Because they would knock him, okay, that's normal, and then do this jump and insta kill him when he wasn't even near, he wasn't unconscious, so he had a lot of health, and they would just kill him. I was getting so frustrated with that part. So I started killing the hunters. I had saved a lot of ammo, so I thought, why not? The hunters are killing me, so I will kill the hunters. And those are basically the differences. Besides that, you don't see any different cutscenes. The only differences are the interactions and maybe Barry being more helpful than Wesker is. Because when Jill is normally in a tight spot, Barry will kind of come running to save her. And with Chris, he was alone most of the time. So you see some situations, for example, in the final battle with Lisa Trevor, it's Wesker that it's down there with Chris, and you find him. They also have an interesting chat at the end before the tyrant fight, where Chris is accusing him of being responsible for everything that is happening, and contrary to what happens with Jill, well, where she doesn't know what happened to Wesker's body, in here Chris sees his body lying down, so why the difference? So Chris thinks that Wesker died, while Jill thinks that he survived somehow. Those are some small differences that the two runs have, and I really recommend that you play each run at least one time, because it's not that they have these huge differences, and it's not like you have really another perspective of the story, but it still is interesting to see those differences, and you have access to a character that with Jill you didn't even know was in the mansion, so it's always interesting to see this. As far as the gameplay, so I really love the mechanic of the item box, because in Resident Evil 0 you could drop the items everywhere. You can't do this in the Resident Evil Remake. But actually leaving the items sometimes weren't really helpful, because you had to memorize the place where you left them. With the item box, as long as you're in the save room with the item box, you can have your items at your disposal at any time. So I really liked the mechanic of the item box. I actually at a certain point became like a hoarder, because I would pick up stuff and trip to the item box, pick up more stuff and trip to the item box. So I really like the item box stuff. And And the shooting, it works more or less like Resident Evil Zero. You also don't have dodge. I would love to have a dodge mechanic. I don't understand how you push away the enemies if it's scripted. I would just randomly press the buttons and try to get them off. But I do like the mechanic of using the daggers and taser for Jill, and the daggers and flash grenades for Chris. The flash grenades are really useful, because if you have like 2 or 3 zombies on top of you and you put a flash grenade in the mouth of one, you can literally explode with the other ones. So that's really useful. And basically that's it. I don't have an enemy that I really despise. I was really getting angry with the hunters with Chris and the dogs with Jill, but apart from that, you can breeze through the zombies. The main difference between this game and Resident Evil Zero is really the backtracking. Because I feel like Resident Evil Zero is much more linear in the way that you go through the locations. In here, because yes, you have the courtyard, you have the residence, you have the lab in the basement, but it's all the same thing. And you find keys and have to go back to the mansion and then find another item for a puzzle that is in the mansion. You have to backtrack a lot and you waste a lot of time while doing this. So it was really difficult in my first playthrough to get the hang of this, because you always have, oh yes, I have to go back there, and you have to really manage that. And that's it. The puzzles are what you know. I really like to get to know Jill and Chris. I must say that Jill looks through the game dumber than Chris in certain moments. Once again, the voice acting is a little bit awkward, but it's not terrible. You can go through. I mean, the best part is having Wesker at the beginning saying Chris this way, so it's always the high point of the voice acting in this game. And of course, hearing Barry make the joke of a Jill sandwich is also good. But yeah, I really like the soundtrack. The soundtrack is really simple, but whenever I heard the music from the save room, I felt at peace, like I can relax in here. So it's really interesting. Also, when you were going through the sharks and you had this really tense music whenever you were in the water, it's also really good. I like the soundtrack. It's simple, but it works well. It's not really memorable, but it does its job. So this is my thoughts on Resident Evil. I'm really looking forward to play Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I would really like to play the original, but let's see if the opportunity arises. Tell me which is your favorite, if you prefer to play with Jill or with Chris, your thoughts on the other characters, and as always, if you like this type of content, like this video, subscribe, follow me on Twitch to see me doing the lives and playing the games on real time, and I will see you next time.